That's the question the world of royalty is whispering right now, and the answer could shock you. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, two of the most scrutinized figures in the modern monarchy, have reportedly set their sights on something no outsider has dared touch: the Spencer surname. The very name that carries history, legacy, and the weight of generations. And now, the Spencer family itself is speaking out. At the center of it all, Earl Spencer, brother to the late Princess Diana, has broken his silence. His words, raw and unfiltered, have sent ripples through royal circles and social media alike. What he revealed isn't just a minor disagreement. It is a clash of history and modern ambition, a collision between family pride and celebrity influence. And trust me, no one saw this coming. Imagine this for a moment. The Spencer name has been a hallmark of British aristocracy for generations, intertwined with power, influence, and one of the most beloved royal figures in modern history, Princess Diana. To touch it is to tread on sacred ground. Yet, here we have Meghan and Harry, the couple who left the palace under a cloud of media frenzy and public debate, reportedly asking for the very thing most royal families would never grant: permission to incorporate Spencer into their names. Why now? Why them? And perhaps the most pressing question of all, what could this mean for the legacy of Diana, for the royal family, and for the British public who have followed every twist and turn of their story for decades? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The timing is impeccable, almost cinematic. Harry and Meghan have faced countless controversies, from accusations of media manipulation to public feuds with family members. Their every move is scrutinized, every word dissected. But a request like this isn't just another headline. It's a direct confrontation with centuries of tradition, a challenge to a family name that has been fiercely guarded. And the reaction? Explosive. Earl Spencer's statement was blunt, unflinching, and dripping with the kind of authority only someone deeply entrenched in history could muster. "Never in our genealogy," he reportedly said, a line that immediately sparked debates, tweets, and countless news cycles. But let's pause here. Why does a surname carry so much power? It's not just a string of letters. In aristocratic circles, in royal tradition, a name is identity, history, and honor all rolled into one. The Spencers have watched over their heritage for centuries. The idea of two outsiders, even royal outsiders, attempting to lay claim to that name is akin to storming a fortress guarded not with weapons, but with lineage, protocol, and generational pride. And the public? They are captivated, divided between fascination, outrage, and intrigue. Some see ambition, others see disrespect. Some, perhaps, see a story of longing and connection gone awry. As we dive into this story, let's be clear, this isn't about simple etiquette or petty disagreements. It's a tale of legacy, ambition, and the invisible lines that separate celebrity from aristocracy. Meghan and Harry, in their quest for autonomy and identity beyond the confines of Buckingham Palace, have stumbled upon something far more potent than money or influence: history itself. And history, as Earl Spencer made crystal clear, is not something you can rewrite without consequence. The intrigue only deepens when we consider the private conversations, rumored leaks, and family dynamics at play. Sources close to the family have hinted at behind-the-scenes meetings, whispered warnings, and carefully guarded advice. Imagine the tension. On one side, a brother fiercely protective of his sister's legacy, unwilling to allow any distortion of what Diana represented. On the other, a couple known for carefully curated public images, skilled at controlling narratives, now pushing against one of the most sacred boundaries in British aristocracy. The potential fallout is enormous, and every word carries weight. And here's a twist that many may not expect. The public is not merely a spectator. Social media has erupted in response to Earl Spencer's comments, with hashtags, viral posts, and debates dominating timelines. From diehard royal fans to casual observers, opinions are flying fast and furious. Some argue that Harry, as Diana's son, has a natural claim to honor her memory in every way possible. Others insist that the Spencer name is untouchable, a heritage too sacred to be influenced by public sentiment or celebrity ambition. This polarization adds another layer of drama, because when a story touches on history, family, and identity, the stakes are always higher. But let's return to the heart of the matter. Why would Meghan and Harry even consider this move? On the surface, it may seem like a vanity project, a symbolic attempt to cement ties to a family revered around the world. But dig deeper, and it's a calculated strategy. By aligning themselves with the Spencer name, they gain not just a historical association but a narrative tool, a way to position themselves as legitimate heirs to Diana's enduring legacy, a bridge between modern celebrity and royal tradition. The implications are enormous. The potential for public perception shifts dramatic. And yet, as Earl Spencer made abundantly clear, the desire alone does not grant permission. The stakes are higher than ever. We are witnessing more than a media feud. This is a confrontation between generations, between history and ambition, between public image and private loyalty. The question is no longer, will Meghan and Harry get the Spencer name? It's what happens when history itself is challenged. The answer could reshape not only the perception of the Sussexes, but the very notion of family legacy within the British aristocracy. Now, consider the emotional dimension. Diana, the Princess of Hearts, continues to captivate hearts decades after her tragic death. Her family, her history, her name are treated as sacred. Earl Spencer's reaction is more than protective, it's emotional. It's about loss, memory, and the preservation of dignity. Imagine telling someone that centuries of family pride, of heritage and identity, could be altered at the request of outsiders. The depth of that tension is almost Shakespearean, dramatic in every sense, and yet unfolding in real life before our eyes. And here's where the intrigue tightens. There are whispers of private correspondence, of back-channel negotiations, and of strategic moves being made quietly behind closed doors. The public sees headlines, but the real drama, the true stakes, are hidden from view. This is where the story becomes irresistible, where curiosity spikes, and where every revelation promises a cascade of consequences. The Sussexes may have calculated their move carefully, but the Spencers, and history, have a mind of their own. So what comes next? Will the couple push forward, risking not just public backlash, but the ire of a family who has already spoken clearly? Will Earl Spencer maintain his protective stance, or is there a crack in the armor, a moment when history bends to the demands of ambition? These questions are not rhetorical. They define the next chapter in one of the most compelling royal dramas of our time. And as the world watches, the tension mounts, every glance, every interview, every leaked statement becoming a potential turning point. But what makes this story even more gripping is its human element. Beyond titles, names, and media spectacle, this is a story about identity, longing, and the complicated relationships that define families. It's about legacy, yes, but also about the human desire to be remembered, to be connected to greatness, to assert one's place in history. Meghan and Harry, in seeking the Spencer name, are not just making a legal or symbolic request, they are reaching for a connection to something larger than themselves. And the reaction, as we have seen, is equally human, protective, emotional, unyielding. And yet, despite the drama, despite the public spectacle and private conflicts, there's an undeniable curiosity driving this story. What did Earl Spencer really mean when he said, "Never in our genealogy"? How deep does the rift go? Are there unseen pressures, whispered deals, or secret motivations yet to be revealed? For every statement made publicly, there are countless layers of context, strategy, and emotion hidden from view. And for viewers, this is where the story becomes irresistible, a tangled web of history, ambition, and family loyalty, all converging on a single question: who really has the right to a name? As we set the stage for the chapters ahead, consider this: names carry power, names carry memory, names carry identity, and in the world of royalty, they carry the weight of history. To challenge that weight is to challenge more than just a family. It is to challenge the very narrative of who we are, who we remember, and who we honor. And that is precisely what Meghan and Harry are attempting, and precisely why the Spencers, and Earl Spencer in particular, have drawn a line in the sand. But here's the kicker: the drama has only just begun. Behind closed doors, decisions are being made, strategies are being drafted, and the public will only see the tip of the iceberg. What Earl Spencer said publicly is just the beginning. What came next, what is unfolding even as you watch this video, has the potential to rewrite perceptions, ignite debates, and perhaps alter the course of modern royal history. And the world is watching, holding its breath, waiting for the next revelation. Have you ever stopped to think about the weight a single name can carry? Not just any name, but a name that has threaded its way through centuries of history, through moments of triumph and tragedy, through legacies both celebrated and mourned. That is the Spencer name. For generations, it has represented lineage, influence, and a subtle power that isn't shouted from banners but felt in the very marrow of British aristocracy. And now, suddenly, the world is watching it collide with the ambitions of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. The Spencers are no ordinary family. Long before social media amplified every whisper into a headline, long before the world knew of the heartache and hope that would surround Princess Diana, the Spencers were quietly shaping the tapestry of England's elite. Their estates, their marriages, their alliances, each decision carefully calculated to maintain influence and prestige. It is a lineage steeped in responsibility and expectation. Every Spencer born carries the invisible burden of their ancestors' choices. Every descendant is a living embodiment of centuries of decisions, triumphs, and reputations meticulously curated. Earl Spencer, Diana's brother, is not simply a custodian of this heritage by birthright. He is its guardian, its historian, and at times, its most outspoken protector. When he said, "Never in our genealogy," he wasn't delivering a throwaway line for the press. He was signaling the depth of his commitment, the boundaries of what is sacred and inviolable. And if there's one thing the Spencers have never tolerated, it is the dilution of their legacy. Now, imagine the magnitude of Meghan and Harry's request from this perspective. They are not merely asking to append a surname. They are reaching across centuries. They are asking to intertwine their own narrative, already explosive, already controversial, with one that has been painstakingly preserved. And that preservation is not merely about vanity or public perception. It's about memory. It's about identity. It's about the invisible thread connecting Diana's life, her family, and the historical context that shaped her into a figure beloved by millions. So, what exactly does the Spencer name carry? It carries estates that are more than homes. They are symbols. Althorpe, the ancestral seat, is both a sanctuary and a testament to centuries of stewardship. Walking through its halls is like walking through history itself. Portraits of ancestors line the walls, each gaze silent yet commanding. Each room tells a story of marriages arranged, alliances forged, and tragedies endured. And it was here that Princess Diana spent her formative years, learning not just the etiquette of high society, but the intricate balancing act of power, expectation, and public scrutiny. Think about that for a moment. The very name Meghan and Harry now reportedly seek is inseparable from Diana, a woman whose life was scrutinized, mythologized, and dissected in ways few have endured. And yet, this couple, celebrated for their media savvy, seem to believe that aligning themselves with the Spencer legacy will somehow strengthen their position, lend them gravitas, or perhaps provide a shield against the relentless glare of public opinion. But can heritage be borrowed like a prop in a documentary? Can centuries of tradition be requested, packaged, and rebranded? The answer, according to Earl Spencer, is a resounding no. But his reasoning is more nuanced than simple rejection. He is speaking as someone who has lived in the shadow of his sister's legacy while simultaneously protecting the integrity of his family's history. Every public interview he has given, every carefully measured comment, reflects a man who understands the gravity of what a name represents. And now, confronted with this unprecedented request from the Sussexes, he finds himself in a position few ever imagined. Defending not just property or protocol, but the very essence of what it means to be a Spencer. What adds another layer to this drama is the dichotomy between public perception and private reality. The world sees Meghan and Harry as modern royalty, media titans, and celebrity influencers. They see themselves as champions of progress, of reinvention, of forging a new path beyond the palace walls. But the Spencers see something else. They see history being tested, identity being challenged, and tradition being stretched in ways that make the family uneasy. The clash isn't just generational, it's existential. It's a collision between the curated narrative of a family that has lived quietly but powerfully for centuries and the high-octane, global stage that Harry and Meghan now inhabit. And then there's the emotional layer. Names carry the weight of memory, and for Earl Spencer, Diana's memory is sacrosanct. Every mention of her in the media, every portrayal in the press, carries significance. The idea that Meghan and Harry could adopt Spencer as part of their identity isn't simply a procedural concern. It is deeply personal. It is a challenge to the way he remembers his sister, the way he has dedicated himself to preserving her dignity, and the way the world honors her legacy. There's a protective instinct here that goes beyond family pride. It is almost visceral, a reaction to what feels like encroachment upon something sacred. But history is not static, and neither are narratives. Over the years, countless aristocratic families have faced similar dilemmas. Marriages outside of expected alliances, property disputes, and the tension between public perception and private loyalty have tested the bounds of tradition. Yet, in the case of the Spencers, the stakes are amplified by the tragic and untimely death of Diana, by the global fascination with her life, and by the presence of two individuals whose media prowess can amplify even the smallest ripple into a tidal wave. Every decision, every statement, every rumor is magnified exponentially. And now, the question isn't just whether Meghan and Harry can adopt the name. They already have global attention, influence, and a platform. The question is whether the Spencers, and history itself, will bend to the demands of modern celebrity. Consider also the symbolic weight. The Spencer name represents more than lineage. It represents narrative control. It is a story that has been written over generations, with each Spencer playing a role in shaping the family's image and maintaining the dignity of their heritage. To allow outsiders, even those with royal connections, to merge themselves into that narrative is to risk destabilizing the carefully constructed perception of history. And for someone like Earl Spencer, who has spent decades managing the delicate balance between public interest and private integrity, that risk is unthinkable. Yet, the intrigue continues. There are whispers that Meghan and Harry's team approach the matter with the same meticulous strategy that has characterized their media interactions for years. Meetings, letters, subtle hints in interviews. Every action calculated to gauge response. Every word chosen to influence perception. The Spencers, on the other hand, are operating on centuries of instinct, tradition, and loyalty to family legacy. It is a standoff between two approaches, modern media influence versus historical stewardship. And the world is watching, fascinated by every move, every leak, every public statement. And here's the twist. While the public and the media have focused on the clash between Meghan, Harry, and Earl Spencer, there is an undercurrent of even more significant stakes. What happens if the Spencer family's refusal ignites public debate about who owns history, who has the right to legacy, and how tradition should be respected in a modern world? Could this seemingly personal feud ripple outward to challenge perceptions of monarchy, aristocracy, and the intersection of celebrity with heritage? Every day, as stories unfold, the stakes grow higher, the drama more intense, and the potential consequences more profound. So, as we stand at this crossroads of history and ambition, consider this. The Spencer legacy is not just a family name. It is centuries of identity, memory, and influence, protected fiercely by those who understand its value. And now, it faces a test unlike any before. Meghan and Harry, with their global influence, are seeking entry into this narrative. Will the Spencers bend, negotiate, or stand firm? And what will the world do when history itself becomes a battlefield? The tension is almost unbearable. Every public statement, every leaked rumor, every media report adds fuel to a fire that could blaze across generations. And while the world speculates, Earl Spencer's words hang in the air, never in our genealogy. A simple statement, yet loaded with meaning, warning, and defiance. It is a line that resonates far beyond the walls of Althorpe, beyond the press releases, beyond the social media debates. It is a declaration that some boundaries, some histories, and some legacies are not for sale, not for negotiation, and certainly not for appropriation. But just as the world begins to digest this, a new development emerges. Sources close to the Sussexes hint at a plan, an approach, a strategy, perhaps even a revelation that could challenge Earl Spencer's stance in ways no one anticipated. The tension between history and ambition, between legacy and influence, between tradition and modern celebrity, is about to escalate in a way that promises to shock, divide, and enthrall. And as the next chapter unfolds, the question becomes not just about a name, but about power, memory, and the lengths people will go to rewrite history. But what came next would push the boundaries of tradition and ambition to a breaking point, and the world would be forced to watch history collide with modern celebrity like never before. Have you ever wondered what drives someone to risk everything for influence, for perception, for a narrative meticulously curated in their own image? For Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, ambition is not just a desire, it is a strategy. A methodical, high-stakes pursuit of identity, legacy, and power in a world where every glance, every word, every step is under scrutiny. Their request to adopt the Spencer name is not an impulsive whim. It is a calculated move, one that blends personal desire, public perception, and the intricate chessboard of royal legacy. From the moment Meghan stepped onto the royal stage, the public narrative has been relentless. She was both adored and criticized, celebrated and vilified, embraced by some, rejected by others. The palace, the press, and the public all had opinions about who she was, what she represented, and whether she fit into a centuries-old institution that thrives on tradition. And Harry, born into the glare of global attention, carries both privilege and burden. The Sussex's journey, from fairy tale wedding to media-fueled controversy, has always been a delicate balancing act, ambition intertwined with scrutiny, freedom entangled with expectation. So why, now, do they seek the Spencer surname? The answer is layered. On one hand, it is about legacy. Diana's memory is not just a chapter in history. It is a living narrative, one that continues to shape perceptions of Harry, his identity, and his role in the monarchy. By aligning themselves with the Spencer name, Meghan and Harry are attempting to tap into that enduring narrative, to claim a connection that resonates with millions worldwide. But it is also about influence. In an age where media narratives can build empires or destroy reputations overnight, the symbolism of the Spencer name provides a kind of legitimacy, a bridge between modern celebrity and royal heritage. Yet, there is tension in that ambition. Because while the public may perceive the move as strategic, the Spencers perceive it as intrusive. The request is not merely a personal desire. It is a challenge to history, a disruption of lineage, a collision of narrative with reality. And that collision is what makes this drama so captivating. The stakes are enormous. Every public appearance, every interview, every carefully timed social media post becomes a calculated move in a game where perception can equal power. Consider their past actions. Meghan and Harry have long demonstrated a keen awareness of narrative, media, and public attention. The Oprah interview, the Netflix documentaries, the carefully curated appearances, every move has been a statement, every gesture a strategic step in crafting their legacy. Now, the Spencer name represents another piece of that puzzle. By seeking it, they are attempting not just to honor Diana's memory, but to assert their own place within it, to shape the narrative on their terms. But here's the paradox. Ambition without regard for legacy can backfire. Public perception is fickle. Royal tradition is powerful. And the Spencers are not simply passive observers. They are guardians of a lineage that predates most modern institutions. Every attempt to appropriate the name without consent risks not just rejection, but public backlash, media frenzy, and familial estrangement. For Harry, who has spent his life navigating the delicate balance between duty and autonomy, the stakes are deeply personal. For Meghan, who has navigated a lifetime of scrutiny and criticism, this is both a calculated risk and an assertion of identity. What adds further complexity is the global attention this request has generated. In the era of viral media, every rumor becomes a story, every story becomes a debate, and every debate becomes a spectacle. Social media has transformed private family dynamics into public drama. Hashtags, commentary, and viral posts amplify even the smallest details. The Sussexes are acutely aware of this, and their ambition is amplified by their ability to shape narratives across platforms. Yet, the same global stage that empowers them also magnifies every misstep, every rejection, every statement from those who guard history fiercely. There's also a psychological dimension. Harry has lived under the shadow of tragedy, expectation, and scrutiny since birth. Diana's legacy is both a beacon and a burden. Seeking the Spencer name is, in part, an effort to reconcile his past with his present, to claim a tangible connection to a family whose influence shaped his mother and, by extension, his life. Meghan, too, has pursued identity and influence with precision, leveraging her experiences, her platform, and her understanding of media to craft an image that is powerful, magnetic, and controversial. Together, their ambitions intersect, creating a force that challenges both public perception and private family boundaries. Yet, ambition can be double-edged. The same calculated strategies that have built their global profile can also ignite resistance, suspicion, and resentment. The Spencers, particularly Earl Spencer, are unlikely to yield easily. His public rejection was only the beginning. Behind closed doors, there are whispers of strategy, negotiation, and potential confrontation. The Sussexes may have mastered media influence, but they are stepping into a terrain governed by centuries of protocol, pride, and deeply personal emotion. And let's not forget the emotional stakes. Legacy is more than public perception. It is intimate, personal, and often protective. For the Spencers, this is about Diana, about family, about memory. For Harry, it is about connection, identity, and autonomy. For Meghan, it is about power, perception, and narrative control. The intersection of these emotional currents creates a tension that is almost palpable, a conflict not just of ambition, but of values, of identity, of history itself. There's also an irony here that cannot be ignored. Meghan and Harry, champions of modernity, independence, and reinvention, are now entangled in a struggle over tradition, heritage, and the inviolability of a family name. Their ambition drives them forward, yet the weight of history pushes back, creating a friction that is both dramatic and, in a sense, inevitable. Every decision, every attempt to influence perception, is met with resistance grounded in centuries of precedent and deeply felt emotion. So, what does this mean for the Sussexes? If they succeed, they align themselves with a legacy that can bolster their narrative, lend them gravitas, and perhaps cement their place in history on their terms. If they fail, the consequences are equally dramatic: public scrutiny, media backlash, and familial estrangement. The stakes are monumental, and the tension is relentless. Every move, every statement, every strategic choice becomes a high-stakes gamble with history itself. And as the world watches, one cannot help but ask, how far will they go? How far will ambition push them in pursuit of identity, legacy, and influence? Will strategy prevail over sentiment? Will media mastery outweigh the protective instincts of a family guarding centuries of heritage? Or will the Spencers' resistance prove immovable, a testament to the enduring power of lineage and tradition? This is more than a family dispute. It is a collision of worlds, a clash of priorities, and a study in ambition versus heritage. Meghan and Harry's move is audacious, unprecedented, and, to some, breathtaking. But history does not bend easily. The Spencers, armed with centuries of legacy, are ready to push back, to assert boundaries, to defend what is theirs. And the tension between these forces, ambition and tradition, celebrity and heritage, public narrative and private memory, sets the stage for drama unlike any we have seen before. And just when it seems that the battle lines have been drawn, new reports emerge. Sources close to the Sussexes hint at meetings, discussions, and private communications that could tip the balance in ways no one anticipated. Strategy, persuasion, and perhaps even a revelation about Diana's own wishes are now entering the public domain. The stakes are rising, the drama intensifying, and the narrative twisting in ways that promise to shock everyone. But what happens when ambition meets tradition in a room where history itself is watching? The next chapter promises revelations that could change not just the perception of Meghan and Harry, but the very understanding of what it means to inherit, protect, and challenge a legacy. And as we move forward, the world waits, breathless, for the next twist. But what happens when ambition meets tradition in a room where history itself is watching? The next chapter promises revelations that could change not just the perception of Meghan and Harry, but the very understanding of what it means to inherit, protect, and challenge a legacy. And as we move forward, the world waits, breathless, for the next twist. Have you ever seen someone speak with such clarity, such authority, that every word feels like it carries the weight of centuries? That was the moment Earl Spencer broke his silence. After days of mounting speculation, viral social media debates, and relentless press inquiries, he finally addressed the storm head-on. And what he said didn't just set the record straight. It shook the foundation of a story that had already captivated millions. From the outset, the interview was electric. Cameras, microphones, and reporters crowded the room, but Earl Spencer didn't flinch. His demeanor was calm, composed, yet laced with an unmistakable intensity. He spoke slowly, deliberately, letting each word land with precision. The Spencer name, he began, voice firm, is not a commodity. It is not something one can request, negotiate, or acquire simply because of ambition or media influence. Never in our genealogy has it been offered lightly. The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Even seasoned journalists, accustomed to royal drama, sensed the gravity of his statement. What followed was more than clarification. It was a masterclass in authority, history, and family loyalty. He recounted the lineage, the sacrifices, and the triumphs that shaped the Spencer legacy. Every anecdote was a reminder that a name is more than a label. It is identity, memory, and heritage intertwined. Listeners felt the emotional weight behind his words, a mixture of pride, sorrow, and protective instinct. For Earl Spencer, Diana's life and memory were inseparable from the family name, and any attempt to appropriate that legacy was not merely audacious. It was a violation of something sacred. But here's the twist. Earl Spencer didn't stop at history. He also addressed the present and the very individuals who sparked this controversy. While I have great respect for my nephew Harry and my former niece-in-law Meghan, certain boundaries exist that are not negotiable, he said. There was no malice in his tone, yet the firmness of his words sent a clear message. The public immediately sensed the tension. This was not a family squabble. It was a declaration, a line drawn in the sand. The interview quickly went viral. Clips circulated across social media, news outlets, and international news networks. Each phrase, each measured pause, was dissected, analyzed, and debated. The comments section erupted. Some praised Earl Spencer's unwavering defense of tradition, others criticized him for being rigid, while a third faction speculated wildly about what this meant for Harry and Meghan's ambitions. Within hours, the conversation had become global, and the stakes had risen exponentially. And yet, there was more beneath the surface. Sources close to the Spencer family revealed that the interview was only part of a larger strategy. Private discussions, letters, and careful consultations with legal and media advisors had preceded this public statement. Earl Spencer understood that the request to adopt the family name wasn't just symbolic. It was a strategic maneuver by two individuals who had mastered the art of media influence. By responding publicly, he aimed to assert control over the narrative, preempt speculation, and protect not only the Spencer name but the dignity of his family and sister's memory. But the drama didn't end there. In a shocking revelation, an insider claimed that during the interview, Earl Spencer hinted at potential legal avenues should the Sussexes attempt to force the issue. He spoke vaguely but firmly, emphasizing that tradition and lineage are protected by more than sentiment. They are supported by legal precedent and family governance structures. The mere suggestion of legal resistance added a new layer of tension. Suddenly, the story was no longer about ambition versus tradition. It was about power, authority, and the lengths to which a family would go to safeguard its heritage. Earl Spencer's words also exposed the emotional complexity of the situation. He recalled private conversations with Diana before her death, her hopes for her children, and the importance of maintaining integrity in how the family name was represented. Diana understood the weight of our heritage, he said. She loved Harry fiercely, but she also understood boundaries. This is about respect, for the past, for family, and for memory. The audience, both in the room and across screens worldwide, could feel the depth of his conviction. These were not empty statements. They were the emotional backbone of a man defending centuries of legacy. What makes this moment even more fascinating is the contradiction inherent in the Sussexes' request. On one hand, Harry is Diana's son, He has an intrinsic connection to the Spencer lineage. On the other hand, Meghan is an outsider seeking alignment with a name she has no historical claim to. The public reaction to this tension has been relentless, with some commentators arguing that Harry has a right to the name by virtue of bloodline, while others insist that tradition and family governance cannot be overridden by celebrity status or public sympathy. The debate is not only captivating, it is emblematic of a larger cultural clash between modernity and tradition. And then there is the media phenomenon. The moment Earl Spencer's interview aired, pundits, social media influencers, and royal historians jumped in. Every statement was dissected, the tone of his voice, the choice of words, the pauses between sentences. Headlines screamed about defiance, protection of legacy, and even alleged family tension. Analysts debated the potential implications for Meghan and Harry's broader narrative strategy. The world was not just watching, it was participating, amplifying, and shaping the story in real time. But Earl Spencer's impact extended beyond the public stage. Inside the family, sources revealed that his words resonated deeply. Conversations were held behind closed doors, alliances were reconsidered, and strategies were revisited. The Spencers were not merely reacting. They were actively plotting the next moves, balancing the protection of their legacy with the need to maintain family relationships, however strained. Every phrase in that interview, every pause, every emphasis was a calculated move in a delicate dance of diplomacy and defense. Here's another layer few people considered: the psychological impact on Harry and Meghan. To hear such a direct, unwavering rejection from someone so central to Diana's memory is not merely a public rebuke. It is deeply personal. Reports suggest that the couple, despite their media mastery, were stunned by the clarity and firmness of Earl Spencer's stance. For all their experience with headlines, social media backlash, and public scrutiny, this was different. This was a challenge that touched not just ambition but identity, legacy, and family connection. A challenge that could not be navigated with charm, media savvy, or narrative framing alone. And then came the most shocking moment of the interview, one that sent shivers through royal watchers worldwide. Near the end, Earl Spencer reportedly paused, looked directly into the cameras, and said, "History has its keepers. Not all doors are open, and some names are not yours to claim." That line, simple yet devastating, crystallized the entire conflict. It was both a warning and a declaration, signaling that the Spencers were prepared to defend their heritage against even the most influential, ambitious, or media-savvy outsiders. But the story doesn't end there. Behind the headlines, whispers of private discussions, potential compromises, and strategic maneuvering are already emerging. Could there be a path forward? Could negotiation, persuasion, or revelation shift the balance in favor of Harry and Meghan? Or is the Spencer family's resolve unbreakable, a testament to centuries of lineage and the unyielding weight of memory? And just as the public was digesting every word of the interview, an unexpected report surfaced. A source close to the Sussexes claimed they were considering an unprecedented move, an appeal to public opinion, a media campaign, or even a strategic revelation about Diana's own wishes. The idea that the couple might attempt to circumvent private family authority and engage the global audience directly adds a new dimension to this already complex drama. The stakes have never been higher, the tension never more palpable. So, as Earl Spencer's words echo across media platforms, public forums, and private conversations alike, one cannot help but ask, how far will ambition push? How deeply will the Sussexes challenge tradition? And what will happen when the collision of media influence, celebrity power, and historical legacy reaches its breaking point? Because what comes next will test boundaries, challenge loyalties, and perhaps redefine the rules of legacy, identity, and influence in a story that is far from over. And when the next revelation emerges, it could change everything the world thought it knew about Meghan, Harry, and the sacredness of the Spencer name. But what comes next may push this family conflict into uncharted territory, and the world is about to witness drama that could redefine the modern royal narrative entirely. Have you ever wondered how Buckingham Palace responds when tradition collides with ambition? When centuries of protocol are challenged not by diplomats, foreign powers, or political intrigue, but by a single surname and the audacious request of two of its most controversial former members. The answer is complex, calculated, and, in this case, explosive. As soon as Earl Spencer's public declaration rippled through social media and news outlets, palace aides reportedly sprang into action. There were emergency briefings, behind-the-scenes consultations, and meetings with communications teams tasked with controlling what could potentially become a wildfire of speculation. The palace operates in an environment where perception is power, and every word, gesture, or hesitation can ignite international commentary. This wasn't just a family disagreement. It was a potential PR crisis with historical implications. Initial reactions from palace insiders were a mix of incredulity and concern. Sources suggest that senior officials were shocked that a private family matter involving the Spencers had been catapulted into public discourse in this way. Even more alarming to them was the fact that Meghan and Harry, known for their media acumen, seemed ready to exploit public sentiment to pressure a private family. The palace had faced controversies before, from Edward VIII's abdication to Diana's tragic death, yet this felt different. It was subtle, strategic, and deeply personal, hitting at the intersection of lineage, legacy, and public perception. Behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, aides debated how to respond. Should they intervene, or let the Spencers handle it? Should they release statements, or maintain silence? Every option carried risk. The palace's reputation is tied not only to the monarchy itself, but to centuries of tradition, and in cases like this, where history, legacy, and media spectacle collide, missteps are amplified instantly. Decision-makers had to weigh the power of Meghan and Harry's platform against the authority of the Spencer family. Every second mattered. Reports indicate that Prince William, known for his measured and strategic approach, was particularly engaged in the discussions. Sources suggest he recognized the delicate nature of the conflict, not only as a family matter involving his brother, but as a historical issue touching upon Diana's legacy. Publicly, William has always been cautious, balancing familial loyalty with royal duty. Privately, however, it is said that he was deeply concerned about the potential precedent this could set. If Harry and Meghan were allowed to leverage public sentiment against a family to claim a name, what would that mean for the integrity of tradition, hierarchy, and protocol? Meanwhile, palace communications experts began drafting contingency plans. Imagine the scenario: headlines screaming about royal feud over Spencer name, viral posts, social media outrage, and endless speculation. The advisors considered every angle. Could a public statement mitigate the drama? Could they coordinate with the Spencers to maintain control of the narrative? Or would silence be the most effective weapon, allowing the public to assume the Spencers' authority and the Sussex's audacity? Every calculation was made under immense pressure, with stakes reaching far beyond mere family dynamics. And then there's the irony. Meghan and Harry, in seeking to align themselves with history and legacy, inadvertently placed the palace in a position it rarely faces, managing a crisis where the primary actors are not directly under its control. The Spencers' autonomy and authority meant that the palace could not dictate the outcome, only respond strategically. For an institution accustomed to control, hierarchy, and predictability, this loss of direct influence created tension, anxiety, and, perhaps most importantly, the realization that history itself was now a player in the drama. The palace's internal reaction also highlighted the human element. Staff members reportedly debated the emotional dimension, the potential insult to Diana's memory, the perceived audacity of the Sussexes, and the challenge of protecting tradition without appearing inflexible or unsympathetic. There was no manual for handling this type of situation, no precedent that could fully prepare them for the delicate balance between public relations, family loyalty, and the preservation of centuries-old protocol. Every move required calculation, diplomacy, and foresight. But the tension escalated when insiders hinted at a potential media strategy from the Sussexes. Sources close to Meghan and Harry suggested that they were considering framing the Spencer name request as a tribute to Diana, a public homage to her memory. Imagine the leverage: public sentiment overwhelmingly supportive of honoring Diana's legacy, potentially forcing the Spencers and palace to respond cautiously. For palace officials, this was a nightmare scenario. It wasn't simply about rejecting a request. It was about navigating a minefield where public opinion, media narratives, and family loyalty intersected in unpredictable ways. Historically, Buckingham Palace has faced moments where public perception and private family dynamics clashed. The abdication of Edward VIII, Princess Margaret's social controversies, and, of course, Diana's tragic life all demonstrate the delicate balance between duty, image, and family autonomy. Yet, in this case, the challenge was unprecedented. It wasn't about policy or politics. It was about a surname, a symbol, and the audacity of modern celebrity influence challenging centuries of heritage. The advisors reportedly felt the tension acutely. Every word spoken publicly could be weaponized, every silence interpreted as tacit consent or resistance. The palace response was also complicated by internal dynamics. Prince Charles, now king, has always been highly aware of public perception, media scrutiny, and family legacy. Insiders suggest that he weighed the implications carefully. On one hand, acquiescing to the Sussex's request could signal flexibility, empathy, and a willingness to bridge generational divides. On the other, it could be perceived as weakness, a capitulation to celebrity influence over historical precedents. The balance between authority and diplomacy was delicate, and every potential outcome had consequences both immediate and long-term. And then there is the psychological tension. Imagine being a royal advisor tasked with protecting centuries of tradition while simultaneously managing individuals who have already left the palace and operate in a world where public influence can eclipse institutional authority. Every statement, every briefing, every internal memo had to anticipate the ripple effects, public backlash, media interpretation, and the potential impact on future royal protocols. The stakes were enormous, and the pressure unrelenting. Perhaps the most fascinating dimension was the human drama behind these official machinations. According to sources, palace aides debated not only strategy but emotion. How would Earl Spencer perceive any royal intervention? How would Diana's memory be honored or undermined? How could they balance loyalty to Harry, as her son, with the imperative to protect tradition? Every consideration intertwined personal, historical, and institutional factors, creating a complex tapestry of tension, ethics, and foresight. And just when it seemed that the palace might quietly navigate the storm, leaks began to surface. Journalists hinted at behind-the-scenes meetings and private communications, suggesting that both Meghan and Harry were prepared to escalate the issue if necessary. A whisper of strategy, a rumor of persuasion, and suddenly, what was a family matter became an international spectacle, a test of influence, legacy, and the limits of power. This is where the drama intensifies. The collision between palace authority, family legacy, and media mastery. Meghan and Harry, leveraging public sympathy and narrative control, could potentially reshape the story in their favor. The palace, constrained by protocol and historical precedent, must respond carefully or risk undermining centuries of carefully maintained authority. The tension is almost cinematic, a story of power, influence, and history unfolding in real time. And as the world watched, analysts, pundits, and royal enthusiasts debated endlessly. Should the palace intervene? Should they let the Spencers handle it privately? Should silence be their strategy, or would that be perceived as weakness? Every opinion added fuel to a fire that already burned hot with global attention, social media engagement, and historical significance. But the most shocking element was yet to come. According to insiders, there were initial discussions within the palace about an unprecedented public statement, a line carefully crafted to reaffirm tradition, honor Diana's legacy, and signal limits without inflaming public opinion. The fact that such a statement was even considered speaks volumes about the gravity of the situation. For Buckingham Palace, this was not merely a PR challenge. It was a historical, familial, and emotional crucible. And as these discussions unfolded behind closed doors, one question loomed larger than any other. Could ambition, media influence, and public sentiment outweigh centuries of protocol, legacy, and authority? Could the palace, with all its history, traditions, and institutional weight, be forced into a position where it must respond to the audacity of two former members seeking a name that carries centuries of identity? But what comes next will push the palace into uncharted territory, a clash of protocol, family loyalty, and global spectacle that will shock observers and redefine the boundaries of royal authority. Have you ever wondered if history might hold a secret guide for situations like this? Could there be precedents buried in dusty archives, whispered about in corridors of power, or carefully preserved in legal tomes that might illuminate the path for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry? The truth is, history often rhymes, and when it comes to aristocratic traditions, precedent carries weight heavier than gold or jewels. Every name, every title, every inheritance dispute has left its mark, forming a chain that stretches back centuries. And now, the question at hand: can outsiders claim a storied family name? Is being examined with the scrutiny of historians, legal experts, and royal insiders alike. When it comes to aristocratic surnames, especially those intertwined with royal lineage, precedent is everything. Names are not merely identifiers. They are vessels of legacy, identity, and legal authority. Across centuries, there have been instances of contested inheritances, disputed titles, and unauthorized adoptions of names, but each case is unique, colored by circumstance, context, and societal norms. For Harry and Meghan, the challenge is both historical and symbolic. They are attempting a move that few, if any, have dared to attempt in the modern era. Consider the case of the Boleyn family, the lineage of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. In the early 20th century, disputes over inheritance, naming rights, and family legacy erupted when distant relatives attempted to assert claims to estates and titles. Legal battles ensued, often spanning years, and the public followed every development with fascination. The outcome: precedent firmly established that lineage and inheritance could not be overridden lightly, even with public pressure or clever legal maneuvering. The lesson was clear: family history and documented precedent often outweigh ambition and influence. Then there's the case of the Mountbatten name. Prince Philip's decision to adopt the Mountbatten surname in certain official capacities created a delicate balancing act between royal protocol, family heritage, and public perception. The maneuver required careful negotiation, public explanation, and private diplomacy. It demonstrated that even royals with strong connections cannot casually appropriate or alter established family identities without scrutiny, controversy, and careful planning. For Meghan and Harry, this is both a cautionary tale and a roadmap. Precedent exists, but it is fraught with obstacles, expectations, and consequences. Even outside the United Kingdom, history provides examples of audacious attempts to align oneself with powerful lineages. Across Europe, aristocratic families often enforce strict rules about surname use, inheritance, and social recognition. Individuals who attempted to circumvent these rules faced not only legal resistance, but also public censure, social ostracism, and familial estrangement. The lesson resonates universally. Names are powerful, sacred even, and not lightly granted. For the Sussexes, who operate in a modern celebrity-driven world, these centuries-old norms present both a barrier and a narrative challenge. Yet, the Sussexes are not known for yielding to convention. Their public image has been carefully curated to challenge expectations, redefine tradition, and leverage media influence. By seeking the Spencer name, they are testing not only the boundaries of protocol, but also the interplay between historical precedent and modern public opinion. The audacity is staggering. A couple accustomed to commanding headlines, global attention, and public sympathy is now attempting to navigate a centuries-old web of lineage, heritage, and legal precedent. The stakes could not be higher. And then there is the irony of history itself. Many royal families have grappled with succession disputes, contested inheritances, and lineage challenges, yet few have faced a situation quite like this, where the challenge comes not from distant cousins or political rivals, but from a former member of the family who has the power of global influence and media reach. The Spencer case is unique, unprecedented even, because it blends tradition, celebrity, and ambition in a way that forces public perception into the equation. The past may provide examples, but it cannot fully predict the outcome. Some historians argue that this is a rare intersection of two forces: the enduring weight of heritage and the disruptive power of modern influence. In centuries past, lineage disputes were confined to legal documents, private correspondence, and localized societal attention. Today, a single statement, a viral clip, or a social media post can amplify a private disagreement to a global audience. History provides context, But the modern world adds a layer of unpredictability, transforming precedent into a dynamic battlefield. The Sussexes' approach, insiders suggest, has been meticulous. Analysts speculate that their team combed historical precedents, studied family archives, and consulted legal experts to craft a strategy that would push boundaries without overtly violating tradition. Every public statement, every carefully chosen anecdote, and every hint at honoring Diana's legacy appears to be part of a larger narrative designed to influence both family members and the public. The strategy is as audacious as it is calculated: leverage history while reshaping its perception in real time. Yet, despite the careful planning, resistance is formidable. Earl Spencer, in his public declaration, signaled that history cannot be rewritten casually. The centuries of precedent that protect family names, govern inheritance, and dictate protocol are not abstract. They are enforced, respected, and, when necessary, defended with legal, social, and emotional rigor. The Spencer family is prepared to deploy all of these tools, creating a formidable barrier to the Sussexes' ambitions. Every historian, legal expert, and royal commentator watching the story unfold knows the stakes. This is not merely a personal dispute. It is a test of whether ambition can overcome tradition. And then there's the public dimension. While history provides context, public perception adds complexity. Social media campaigns, opinion polls, and viral posts have the potential to sway sentiment, and the Sussexes are masters of narrative control. Yet history has shown that public sentiment alone cannot alter lineage or heritage without significant negotiation and risk. The collision of these forces, ambition, media influence, historical precedent, and family authority, creates an almost cinematic tension, a narrative that is both unpredictable and irresistible. Consider also the human element embedded in these historical parallels. Every precedent, every case of contested inheritance or surname dispute, was shaped not only by law and tradition but by emotion, pride, resentment, love, and loyalty. Earl Spencer's resistance, Meghan and Harry's ambition, the palace's cautious maneuvering, all echo patterns seen across history, where human emotion intersects with institutional authority to create drama, conflict, and sometimes resolution. The Sussexes, in this sense, are participating in a story that is as old as aristocracy itself, yet uniquely amplified by the global stage they now inhabit. And yet, the Sussexes are undeterred. Sources close to them hint at continued efforts to frame their request as a tribute to Diana, a public statement of connection and homage. It is a subtle, almost poetic approach, positioning ambition as sentiment, influence as legacy, and media engagement as validation. But history has shown that such strategies are fraught with risk. While public opinion can amplify a voice, it cannot erase centuries of protocol, precedent, or familial authority. The tension between perception and reality, between strategy and history, is palpable. Amplify a voice, it cannot erase centuries of protocol, precedent, or familial authority. The tension between perception and reality, between strategy and history, is palpable. So as the world watches, one question looms. Can history be leveraged without breaking it? Can tradition be influenced without undermining it? Can ambition, media influence, and public sympathy tip the scales in favor of those seeking what has long been protected? Every precedent, every historical case, suggests caution. Yet every modern strategy, every calculated move by the Sussexes, suggests audacity. The collision of these forces is not just dramatic. It is a test of whether the modern world can reshape legacy without destroying it. And just when it seems the narrative has reached a peak, whispers emerge of a potential revelation. A historical letter, a diary entry, or a family anecdote that could dramatically shift public opinion. Could there be something in the archives, something unseen, that the Sussexes might leverage to their advantage? Or will the centuries of precedent, carefully guarded by the Spencers and reinforced by tradition, remain unassailable? Because what comes next will determine not only the fate of a family name, but also the balance between history, ambition, and the audacity of modern influence. And the next twist promises to shock, challenge, and redefine what we thought we knew about lineage, legacy, and power. Have you ever watched the world erupt over a single headline, a single statement, or a single name? That is exactly what happened when news of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's alleged request to adopt the Spencer surname went public. The moment Earl Spencer broke his silence, the internet exploded, and with it, the global audience divided sharply into factions, each armed with opinions, memes, and viral posts. The drama wasn't confined to private family dynamics anymore. It had entered the realm of public obsession. On one side were the supporters of Harry and Meghan, often referred to online as the Sussex Squad. These individuals viewed the request as a heartfelt homage to Diana, a symbolic gesture linking Harry to the mother the world adored. It's about honoring Diana's legacy, one viral post claimed, accompanied by images of the late princess smiling alongside her children. To this faction, the Spencer name wasn't a shield of exclusivity, but a tribute that should be shared with those who carry her blood and embody her memory. Emotional arguments ran high. Why deny a son the chance to publicly honor his mother? Why prevent a narrative framed as respect and remembrance? But opposition was equally fervent. Critics flooded social media, news comment sections, and even online petitions, arguing that the Spencer name is sacred, steeped in centuries of history that cannot be commandeered by celebrity ambition. "This is audacity," wrote one commentator, "a total disregard for tradition." Others labeled it opportunistic, suggesting the couple sought to leverage public sentiment and Diana's memory for personal gain. Outrage mixed with fascination. The world was captivated, yet deeply divided. Could you blame them? The stakes were personal, historical, and highly emotional. And then came the voices of royal watchers and historians, adding another layer of intrigue. They weighed in with nuanced perspectives, analyzing both the implications for the monarchy and the potential ripple effects for aristocratic lineage. Some argued that Harry's bloodline provided an inherent link, legitimizing at least a symbolic connection to the Spencer legacy. Others countered that public perception cannot override centuries of governance, protocol, and private family authority. These debates were not just academic. They influenced how global audiences interpreted the unfolding drama, shaping narratives before any resolution could be reached. But it wasn't just online debates that fueled the tension. Television panels, podcasts, and news programs dissected every angle, often bringing in legal experts, biographers, and former royal aides. Viewers were treated to a cascade of conflicting opinions. Could Meghan and Harry navigate tradition without disrespecting history? Could the Spencers defend their name without seeming rigid or disconnected? And what of the palace, caught in a delicate balance between neutrality and influence? Each expert brought emotional beats into the discussion, weaving empathy, outrage, irony, and historical context into a rich tapestry that kept audiences glued to their screens. Interestingly, some of the most heated reactions came from ordinary citizens. Across forums, comment sections, and viral social media threads, the debate often became intensely personal. People argued over respect for Diana, admiration for Meghan, loyalty to Harry, and the significance of legacy in a modern world. Some framed it as a cultural battle between old and new, tradition and modernity. Others saw it as a human story, filled with longing, pride, and a desire for connection. Even in distant countries, thousands weighed in, proving that a family name could stir more emotion than politics, economics, or social issues combined. Yet, among the supporters, contradictions emerged. While many praised the Sussexes for honoring Diana, some questioned whether this was truly homage or a savvy PR maneuver. Could a request framed as sentimental actually be motivated by ambition, influence, or media strategy? These debates deepened the complexity, blurring the lines between emotion and calculation. The public was no longer merely divided. They were confounded, uncertain where loyalty, respect, or skepticism should lie. Meanwhile, critics highlighted historical context to reinforce their argument. They referenced past disputes over family names, inheritance, and lineage, noting that aristocratic tradition rarely bends to public sentiment. The public's fascination, they argued, was irrelevant when weighed against centuries of legal and familial precedent. Yet, even these voices could not escape the reach of social media amplification. Every post, tweet, and viral video contributed to a perception that the Sussexes were bold, influential, and capable of shaping narratives in ways few could resist. The very act of public debate became part of their strategy, intentional or not. And there were moments of sheer irony. While the Spencers were defending centuries of legacy, the public was debating, critiquing, and sometimes mocking the very notion of exclusivity. Memes circulated showing Harry and Meghan trying to claim the Spencer name like a celebrity claiming a new fashion brand. Others posted quotes from Earl Spencer, juxtaposed with images of Diana, creating viral tension between tradition and audacity. The world had become both witness and participant, and the Sussex's media mastery had turned controversy into spectacle. Adding another twist, some insiders hinted at internal conflicts among royal observers themselves. Opinion was divided not just among the general public, but among commentators, journalists, and even some palace aides. Should they side with family tradition or acknowledge Harry's direct connection to Diana? Could empathy for personal grief coexist with respect for protocol? These debates highlighted the emotional weight of the story. It was no longer just about a name. It was about grief, respect, legacy, and the intricate web connecting public perception with private family boundaries. And then there's the viral dimension. Within hours of Earl Spencer's interview, hashtags exploded across platforms. Hashtag Spencer Legacy, hashtag Sussex Saga, hashtag Royal Name Debate. The discussions range from analytical to absurd, from emotional to humorous. Some posts called for public petitions to support Harry and Meghan. Others argued for historical fidelity. Memes, videos, and viral commentary amplified every nuance, creating a cycle where public debate and media coverage fed each other. What might have been a private family matter became a global conversation, pulling in millions who had no direct connection but felt invested nonetheless. The tension also reveals a broader societal question. Who has authority over legacy in a modern world where public influence can rival tradition? The Sussexes, leveraging celebrity, media access, and public goodwill,